Last time, we saw how epigenetic changes can alter the instructions your cells use to make proteins. But producing the right protein is only the beginning.
Because once a protein is made, it has to fold into the right shape, function properly, remain stable, and eventually be recycled or removed.
So what happens when that quality control system begins to break down?
Proteostasis simply refers to protein homeostasis, the system cells use to maintain a healthy, functional population of proteins.
So a protein can contain the right ingredients and still not work?
Exactly. For many proteins, function depends heavily on three-dimensional structure. If that structure is disrupted, the protein may no longer perform its job properly.
So what happens when a protein doesn't fold correctly? Does the cell have a way to catch the mistake?
It does. In fact, your cells have an entire quality control system working around the clock. Molecular chaperones help proteins fold into the correct shape and can sometimes help rescue proteins that have folded improperly. When a protein is too damaged to save, the proteasome can break it down into smaller pieces that the cell can recycle. And for larger damaged structures and cellular debris, the cell can turn to autophagy and lysosomes, essentially a cleanup and recycling system. Together, these mechanisms help maintain proteostasis by following a remarkably simple rule: fold it, fix it, or remove it. But as we age, this quality control system can become less efficient. And when that happens, damaged proteins can begin to accumulate. As cellular quality control systems become less effective, damaged or misfolded proteins may be more likely to persist rather than being repaired, recycled, or removed.
So damaged proteins begin to accumulate. But is that really enough to cause problems throughout the cell?
Unfortunately, yes, because proteins are involved in nearly everything a cell does. As damaged or misfolded proteins accumulate, they can interfere with normal cellular functions. The cell has to devote more resources to managing the problem, increasing stress while placing even greater demands on its cleanup systems. Protein buildup can also disrupt normal transport and communication within the cell and potentially interfere with other proteins and cellular structures. So what began as a protein folding problem can gradually become something much bigger. Energy production may suffer, cellular efficiency can decline, and the cell may become less resilient when faced with additional stress. That's why maintaining proteostasis is so important. When the cell loses control of its proteins, one problem can become many.
And I'm guessing those problems don't necessarily stay isolated inside one cell?
Exactly. And that's where this story gets even more interesting.
So proteostasis isn't really one single process. It's a balance between several things happening at the same time.
Exactly. Think of proteostasis as a continuous balancing act. Your cells are constantly producing proteins needed for everyday function. At the same time, molecular chaperones help those proteins fold correctly and assist when something goes wrong. And proteins that are damaged beyond repair need to be removed and recycled. When production, repair, and removal stay in balance, the cell can maintain a healthy protein environment. But aging can gradually tip that balance. If damaged proteins are being created faster than the cell can repair or remove them, they begin to accumulate. And that's the key idea behind loss of proteostasis. The problem isn't simply that proteins become damaged. It's that the cell begins losing its ability to keep protein quality under control.
So maintaining proteostasis really means staying ahead of the damage.
Precisely. And that raises an important question. Can we do anything to help the cell maintain that balance?
So maintaining all of this protein quality control must require a lot of energy.
It does. And that's an important part of the story. Folding proteins requires energy. Repairing damaged proteins requires energy. And breaking down and recycling proteins that can no longer be saved requires energy too. Your cells are constantly spending energy to keep this entire quality control system running. But as we age, cellular energy production can become less efficient. And when the energy supply begins to decline, these housekeeping systems may have a harder time keeping up. That creates an important connection between two hallmarks of aging. Because when cellular energy begins to falter, maintaining proteostasis can become more difficult. And that brings us directly to our next hallmark: mitochondrial dysfunction.
So one hallmark can actually make another hallmark worse?
Exactly. And that interconnectedness is one of the most important things to understand about aging.
So if folding, repairing, and recycling proteins all require energy, where does that energy come from?
Primarily from one of the most important structures inside your cells, the mitochondria. They help produce the energy your cells need to perform nearly everything we've talked about, including maintaining protein quality control. But there's another problem. As we age, mitochondria themselves can become less efficient. And when the cellular power supply begins to struggle, the effects can ripple throughout the entire cell.
So what happens when the machinery responsible for producing cellular energy begins to break down?
That takes us to hallmark number 4, mitochondrial dysfunction.